that were a heritage from his French father. It was a handsome, even an aristocratic face, the face of a scholar, and somehow the ugly, puckered scar of the old gunshot wound in the left shoulder looked incongruous and out of place. He fingered the flesh beneath the grey eyes and sighed. "Christ, but you look like hell," he said softly, and the face in the mirror was illuminated by a smile of great natural charm. It was one of his most important assets. He ran a hand over the 2-day stubble of beard on his chin, decided against shaving, and returned to the bedroom. As he dressed, rain tapped against the window with ghostly fingers, and when he left the flat 10 minutes later, he was wearing an old trench coat. The car was waiting at the bottom of the steps when he went outside, and he climbed in beside the driver and sat there in silence, staring morosely into the night as they moved through deserted, rain-swept streets. He was tired of living out of a suitcase, of hopping from one country to another, of being all things to all men and someone very different on the inside. For the first time in 5 years, he wondered why he didn't pack it all in. And then they turned in through the gates of the familiar house in St. John's Wood, and he grinned ruefully and pushed the thought away from him. The car braked to a halt before the front door, and he got out without a word to the driver and mounted the steps. He pressed the bell beside the polished brass plate that carried the legend Brown and Company, Importers and Exporters, and waited. After a few moments, the door opened and a tall, greying man in a blue serge suit stood to one side, a slight smile on his face. "Nice to see you back, Mr. Chavasse." Chavasse grinned and punched him lightly on the shoulder as he passed. "You're looking fine, Joe." He went up the curving Regency staircase and passed along a thickly carpeted corridor. The only sound was a slight, persistent hum from the dynamo in the radio room, but he moved past the door and mounted 2 steps into another corridor. Here the silence was absolute, and he opened a large white-painted door at the far end and went in. The room was small and plainly furnished, with a desk in one corner on which stood a typewriter and several telephones. Jean Fraser was bending over a filing cabinet, and she looked up, a slight smile on her round, intelligent face. She removed her spectacles with one hand and frowned. "You look pretty rough." Chavasse grinned. "I usually do at this time of the morning." She was wearing a plain white blouse and a tweed skirt of deceptively simple cut that moulded her rounded hips. His eyes followed her approvingly as she walked across to her desk and sat down. He sat on the edge of the desk and helped himself to a cigarette from a packet that was lying there. He lit it and blew out a cloud of smoke with a sigh of satisfaction. "Now, what's all the fuss about? What's the chief got on his mind that's so important it can't wait until a respectable hour?" She shrugged. "Why don't you ask him yourself? He's waiting for you inside." He frowned slightly. "Another job? Already?" She nodded. "I think it's something pretty big." Chavasse cursed softly and got to his feet. "What does he think I'm made of? Iron?" Without waiting for a reply, he walked across to the far door, opened it, and went in. The room was half in shadow, the only light the shaded lamp that stood upon the desk by the window. The chief was reading a sheaf of typewritten documents, and he looked up quickly, a slight frown on his face. It was replaced by a smile, and he waved a hand toward a chair. "So they've finally managed to locate you, Paul. Sit down and tell me about Greece." Chavasse slumped into the chair and pushed his hat back from his forehead. "Didn't you get my coded report from the embassy in Athens?" The chief nodded. "I had a quick look at it when it came in yesterday. It seems satisfactory. Any loose ends?" Chavasse shrugged. "1 or 2. Your hunch about Skiros was right. He was a double agent. Been working for the commies for the past 4 years. They'll have to wait a long time for his next report." The chief selected a cigarette from a silver box and lit it carefully. "How did you manage it?" "I traced him to Lesbos," Chavasse said. "He was having a skin-diving holiday. Unfortunately, something went wrong with his aqua lung one afternoon. By the time they got him back to the beach, it was too late." The chief sighed.